talk about for the finance stuff is Trump, um, which unfortunately we still have to talk about him. Can't you? I'm hoping he'll lose. Hopefully he'll lose. I think he's gonna lose, and then we won't have to talk about him much after November. Just get rid of
That would be really nice.
this fucking
I'm
guy.
so tired of talking about this man.
He's so boring. So this is what's going on. CEOs. We had this whole discussion. Remember we had we watched the stuff from Davos, and Davos was all worried about, well, God, if Trump's president again, it's gonna, he's gonna deregulate a lot of the environmental stuff. We're gonna see more damage to the environment, which means more storms and stuff, which is gonna slow commerce. Plus, he's gonna be worse for the economy and wars, and he's gonna raise tariffs to a ridiculous percent. His other big plan was, I'm gonna get rid of. This was his thing that he threw out. I'm gonna get rid of income tax entirely. No more income tax. And I'm just going to make up the difference with tariffs. Okay? Well, to do that, you'd have to put an 85% tariff on all goods imported in the United States, which means inflation in the United States. Inflation would be
all that cheap stuff that we get from places like China would suddenly cost more to come into our country, right?
Well, yeah, but then even the local stuff, domestic stuff, that's more expensive now, right? Well, if the Chinese stuff that's coming in that people are usually buying, now they got to buy mine, so demand for my stuff has gone way up. Now I'm jacking up the prices on my stuff.
But if they go back to that cheap stuff from China, the price is still going to be way higher because they were more expensive for U.S. companies to acquire to get here anyway. Therefore, they're going to pass on that jacked up rate to you and your wallet. So either way you slice it, that kind of screws the consumer.
Well, but this is what happens. If you get rid of it, income tax hits the wealthy more than it hits the rest of us, right? And not as much as it should, but it does. Where we get hit, the rest of us, is on things like sales tax, transit tax, things like that. Having to get the goods, because most of our money goes to consuming, as where people who are ultra wealthy, most of their money goes into an investment account or into a business or something. They don't spend it. Yeah, percentage wise. So that was kind of the thing. So there's a big fear with Trump that he's going to fuck up the economy and fuck up the consumer, and so businesses are really worried globally. And this article I saw was a recent one. Why CEOs fear Trump. Kind of similar stuff. So after 34 felony counts in New York on May 31st, Donald Trump is getting back to business as usual, including an off-the-record chat with dozens of CEOs in Washington, D.C. on June 13th. This is a couple weeks ago. Whether they support his antics or not, CEOs have to take Trump seriously as a presidential candidate, given that he's the only realistic alternative to incumbent President Joe Biden, and he could win. And potentially, I don't think so. But Trump remains committed to low taxes and light regulation, which businesses like. Right? They don't want to have to pay a lot of their income or their profits to taxes, and they don't like to be regulated very much because that costs money and time. Making him a natural choice for business people, at least based on those policies. However, there's also considerable trepidation about a second Trump presidency among business leaders. In its latest quarterly survey of businesses, research firm Oxford Economics asked if a second Trump president would represent a geopolitical risk. 34% said Trump would pose a very significant political risk if he won the White House again, and 42% said it would pose a significant risk. So 76% of businesses see Trump as some sort of threat to operations. That's 3 out of 4 major companies see him as a threat to the economy, the world economy. Oxford asked about other types of geopolitical risks, such as hostilities in the Middle East, a clash between Russia and NATO and the military alliance. The conflict between China and Taiwan all scored lower than Trump in terms of representing a very significant risk. Some business leaders literally worry more about Trump than they worry about major wars. So think about that. You're a business, you're moving goods internationally. A war is a nightmare for you in some ways because it makes it difficult to get your goods moved. Especially if you got to go through war zones and stuff. It raises your cost, or you got to go another direction, right? Or go around it. Plus, it also, when you have wars in certain countries, it limits what goods you can get. So, like, Ukraine is a great example. And just from the economic standpoint, you realize Ukraine produces 40% of the grain for bread on the planet? Almost half of that comes from Ukraine. So when you go to the store and you realize, hey, bread is up quite a bit. That's why there's less of it. I mean, that's why wars are, they're negative to your pocket. They're great for corporations in some ways, but not forever. And a lot of these sustained kind of conflicts we have anymore are not very good. So, worries about Trump. So, how serious are the following geopolitical risks to the global economy over the next 2 years? So, have they rated very significant, not significant? China, Taiwan, pretty good, right? They were like 80%, 81%. Thought it was a threat. Middle East, 85%. Russia, NATO, pretty high. Trump presidency, still 76%. Thought he was a risk to the global economy.
Wow.
So there's reasons for this, but we said it. Just the stuff he's proposing, the things he's going to do, it would damage everything, and it would really hurt the consumer, which is you and me.
Well, let's just be honest. He's a bit of a loose cannon, and the global economy likes things to be at least a little predictable, and Trump just, he feels an emotion and then he fires off some crazy choice based on it that has really big impact if he's sitting in the driver's seat,
Yeah, and he's got all these nutbags. It's not him that's the threat so much as the dipshits that are going to come with him. And their kind of crazy sort of culture war, political war shit that they're doing, which has nothing to do with what you should really be focusing on as a president. At least not in my opinion. As a president, you should be focusing on stability. You should be focusing on getting people rights, making sure people have better quality lives, things like that. You shouldn't be worried about stupid shit like freaking out about the border until there's an actual issue.